Well, hey, it's Ryan Dahl and Chris Davenport. Where are
Kids,
you right now?
kids,
You're
am I
up in a
right?
little, that's right. You up in a little attic studio of some kind, stained glass windows around you. It sounds like a really cool space.
We have a little studio space at our house here in Nashville.
Oh, nice.
We're really blessed. Um, we just moved here in at the end of February, and we bought this old kind of dilapidated farmhouse, and
Hmm.
have kind of been renovating it. But one of the very special uh, unexpected extras that we get to be the beneficiaries of is there's an old chapel on the property. Not really sure
Wow.
why, but sure enough, here we are. It's like a little room, got some stained glass and some vaulted ceilings. So I said I think that this would be a good place to write some worship songs.
Well,
So
I mean, to write great worship songs, you just need a place that can inspire you and you can feel like you get some privacy and some peace and a way to connect. So, and
yeah,
whatever you're doing, man, it's working because you write such incredible songs. It's such an honor to be able to
thank
talk
you.
to
I
you
appreciate that.
today about this and just letting you know here and all that we do at Praise Charts, we're just right there behind you already getting in on this new album that's coming out in just a few weeks. You must be so excited. It's like live and in the can and just ready to be opened up to the world, hey?
I excited. It depends on what time of the day you find me, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So, so I think it's. I'm really. I am. I'm being
Yeah.
facetious. It's I'm really just expectant to see what God does. I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, um, I kind of feel about this project the way that I've felt about really all the songs that I've had the privilege of being a part of over the years, which is, I've um, God breathes on what He breathes on,
Hmm.
and my hope and my prayer is that these are some songs that He's going to breathe on, and that they're going to be songs that are going to minister to people and help them in whether it's in their personal devotional time or in the context of a local church service. That's the hope is that they just encounter the Lord,
Hmm.
and they're a blessing to Him and to everyone who hears it. So
Beautiful. Well, I think, for the most part, you have not been on the artist side. I mean, certainly you
right,
have been singing some songs, but I just wonder if a lot of people are like, who is this Chris Davenport? Like, I think I might
right,
heard his name, but I do have like a couple of songs. So, Chris, we've got this profile page on you, and when we go up to the top, this is all the songs where people have recorded on,
wow,
whether or not they've written the songs. But if you scroll down a little bit, and then we get into the songwriting, and then we're like, oh my goodness, Hymn of Heaven is, I mean, that's you're basically writing a song for the modern day hymn book. It's a song we've all come to know and love. I would love to hear just a little bit about that. Another in the Fire has been a wonderful around for many years. Of course, that's been a great song for you. And Call on the Name with Cody Carnes. I mean, I wouldn't have known. I didn't even know until today that you were in behind that song. So this is the thing: is people like you got to realize who we're talking to here is just the mind, the heart, the skill, the talent, and then just like the humble heart of a guy in a half dilapidated old farmhouse. Is just writing songs like this. So I just want to take the time to, I don't know, get to know you a little bit, and then certainly we'll talk about some of these new songs you're coming out with. Do you mind just giving us a little window
yeah.
into the Hymn of Heaven? Because this is a song that we all know, so it's like a connecting point for us with you. I have an experience with that song. I've heard it, sung it, led it. I love it, and I don't often associate it with you because you're
Yeah,
just at the bottom of the copyright line, you
right.
know. I love that. But tell me about your part in that song, a little first experience you had with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got introduced to Brian Johnson through a mutual friend named Paul Balash,
Mm-hmm.
who's a sort of a mentor hero of mine. And
Mm.
he introduced me to Brian, and Brian and I became, fast friends, and started writing together. And then I guess during COVID, when everybody was locked down, Brian texted me and just said, "Hey, like, can we just write every week on FaceTime, just so I have
Hmm.
like some sort of anchoring point,
Yeah.
like just something that's coming up in the schedule, because which I think everybody needed." And so Brian and I started writing on FaceTime every week, and and then eventually he goes, "Hey, like, I'd love to invite my friend Phil to like write with us sometime. Would you be okay with that?" And I was like, "Phil Wickham?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, that would be fine. Of course.
Yeah.
Are
No
you sure you want
brainer.
me to come?" um,
Totally.
and
Yeah.
and so I had never written with Phil before, and I don't even know if we had ever met. And um, we just kind of all jumped on a FaceTime together, um, and and Brian, in his kind of classic Brian way, was like, "Oh, I think I've got an idea that might be, okay."
Yeah.
And so he essentially sort of played that, um, what pretty much remained almost completely unchanged, uh, that first verse of that song.
Yeah.
And it was based around a sermon that his dad had recently preached, and Phil and I were predictably floored, and
Hmm.
just were like, "Yeah, of course, like, are you sure you want us to ruin this song?" and and so and so we just kind of jumped in, and I remember um, having these conversations, just about the hope of heaven, and what an incredible anchor and gift that should be for believers. And
Yeah.
it's something that we so often forget. And I would say that over those FaceTimes that happened, the song happened over several FaceTimes over the course of a few weeks, and tons of text messages. And that was where I kind of first got to know Phil.
Hmm.
And I just remember having all these conversations about, man, like, could you imagine going through what we're going through right now without the hope of heaven, without the the faithfulness of Jesus? Like, everything that's happening in our world right now. Imagine being in this situation,
Yeah.
quarantined, without knowing Jesus. Like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
And so for a while, Phil and I joked that we should call the song "Everything's Gonna Be Okay," and because we were like, I feel like we just need to write a song that's just like, "Hey, like, if you are a Christian, you have got a reason to hope, and
Yeah.
you have a reason to believe that um, God is sovereign, and that He's gonna do what He said He's gonna do, and He's gonna come through." And and I think it's just such a privilege of a song to be a part of, and amazingly, um, God does what He does. Like, like we said earlier, He breathes on what He breathes on, and I that song to me always felt really just sincere and
Mm-hmm.
um, authentic, and to see it connect with people the way that it has, and for it to have the reach that it's had, has just been so humbling. Because it's I would like to think that if you plugged a PA into Chris Davenport's soul, that might be the song that comes out.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so I it's really special to have gotten to partner with such incredible people, who have become such good friends, and but then also just to see the response of
Yeah.
the church on a and I say this humbly, like on a global
Yeah.
scale, that has just
Yeah.
really grabbed that song. And so yeah, that
Hmm.
song has a very special place in my heart. And to this day, like every single time we get to the final verse of that song and it pivots,
Hmm.
it just fills me with such expectation and such joy and such anticipation of, man, like I just have this hope
Yeah.
that cannot be shaken. And it just reminds me what a privilege it is to follow Jesus, to
Yeah.
be honest. And so, but
Beautiful.
that's a special one. I'm grateful to be a part of it.
I'm imagining, just from the kind of person that I can see that you are, you seem to be like a softer spoken, person, but the type of people that are coming to you and inviting you to the table to write with them, like some of the biggest songwriters and artists in our Christian worship world, anyways, like Brandon Lake and Cody Carnes and Naomi Rain and Phil and Brian. It must be daunting and humbling to be invited to those tables. There's something in you that they are seeing, that they're wanting to draw out, or that they need. Can you just tell me what does that feel like? What do you feel like your voice is like in those settings?
Well, firstly, that's very kind of you
Mm-hmm.
to say. Thank you. I guess it's a little paradoxical because there's a part of me that always goes, "What am I doing here? Like, why am
Yeah.
I in this room with all of these
Yeah.
people? That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense." But then there's another part of me that, not in an arrogant or a prideful way, but just in a confident way, goes, "No, I belong here. This is exactly what God's called me to do. I'm just being
Mm-hmm.
faithful with what He's asked me to do, and so I'm just gonna I'm just gonna bring what I bring and do what I do." And I think that the key with for me has always been um, writing with um, like-minded, like-spirited people who are just worshipers,
Yeah.
And I think for me, I've never felt pressure to roar like Brandon Lake or hit high
Right.
notes like Phil Wickham or rave like Naomi. I've always felt confident to just bring what I bring, and I think
Yeah.
that comes through relationship, and I think relationship, breeds security, and I think security um, makes room for authenticity, and
Hmm.
so for me, I think I kind of have a conviction that um, there's and I suppose there's no point in pulling punches. I have a conviction that there's a prophetic gift on my life, that God's
Mm-hmm.
given me
Mm-hmm.
ways to think about things and say things and perceive things, so that I have a responsibility to throw them out to the room and see what happens,
Yeah.
and I try not to be precious about it or offendable about it, but I think for the most part, I just kind of go, man, like what a privilege it is to be working with some of these incredible people who are doing amazing things for the kingdom of God, who are serving local churches in such an impactful and measurable way. And, um, and I just get to kind of be here and almost, just craft kind of,
Yeah.
and plant seeds and help bring ideas to fruition. Um, and so, yeah, it's cool because I somehow can feel completely out of place but totally at home at the same time.
Hmm.
And so it's an interesting little juxtaposition to sort of navigate. But
Yeah.
like you said, like I feel like I'm kind of finding my rhythm and my place in that, and so it's been a fun few years.
Hmm. I can only imagine how many worship leaders, even just in church, would feel like what am I doing here, really? I can't roar like you're saying. I can't roar like Brandon Lake. Every time I listen to a video like his, I love it, but then think I can't do that. I can't do all of these things other people I see are doing, but your testimony, even of just saying how you come to the table and you got to know who you are and you don't need to be like the next person,
Yeah.
and that can breed this quiet confidence that so many of us can have. I mean, many of us listening here now might be like, I don't have that crafting prophetic voice, but what is it that I have that I can just be at the table and just be myself? And we need to hear that story and see that from people like yourself, where you're up with some pretty big personalities and big large names and voices and all of that. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. I think, you know, God, you know, he calls and equips you, not the
Right,
projection of you and not
right.
who you pretend to be or who you wish you were. He calls and equips you. And so I think that um, you only you can bring what you can bring. And
Yeah,
um, when you get kind of hypnotized by comparison, you know, or you look at what someone else is doing and going like, oh, well, that's what I want. Like, I think more often than not, we see the outwork, we see like the fruit of their, we see the fruit of it, but we don't see like the roots of it. And the roots are down deep.
yeah,
They have a strong identity in Jesus. They have security in who they are and what they've been called to do. And I think that that's what we need to desire more as worship leaders and as songwriters is going, man, like I don't want the fruit. I want deep roots.
mm-hmm,
And I
yeah,
think if we can make that the goal, I think that we're going to find that the church is so much more well equipped than we think it is. That there are so many more incredible voices that are yet to be discovered
yeah,
in the church. You know, and I think that they are ready and waiting for people to get confident and get secure in who God has called them to be.
yeah.
And so I'm grateful. I'm enjoying the ride, and um, God's been really kind. So it's
Beautiful.
exciting.
Well, in the next couple of weeks, which when some people are watching this, the album will already be out at the end of June. But this album, this collection of songs under the name Time, is coming out. I'll just show a little window of it here so we can see the Plead the Blood. I mean, I love that song. We've already been listening to that, and The King is newer, and then there will be about 10 or 11 more songs as a part of this collection. Let's just talk about Time a little bit here together.
Yeah.
What tell me about your process of that word. What does that mean to you? How have these songs kind of collected under that sense of that word? Tell me what that means to you.
Yeah. I mean, I think we, I had never really had an ambition to make an album as an artist. That's something that
Mm-hmm.
I just, um, not that I was necessarily categorically against as much as I just didn't really feel like it was um, something that I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I had a couple, you know, moments where I really felt like maybe God was starting to speak to me about maybe doing my own project. And I think, you know, I just sort of responded to him uh, as honestly as I could, which was, you know, I don't really want to do this, but
Hmm.
if you ask me to, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And um, and you know, I'm pretty dumb, so I need you to make it obvious. And so, you know, and so over the course of like the next few weeks, I had a lot of people really, really randomly just reach out to me about, hey, like, have you ever thought about doing a project? If you ever did something, I would love to partner with you. Um, you know, we, we'd love to give, we'd love to support you like this, or what if we did this? And I was just
Mhm.
kind of like, okay, well, I guess I have to do this then. And, I think all through that, one of the main things that I really felt like I had been learning about, um, and sort of, I guess, processing was just this idea that time is perhaps God's most underrated gift.
Mhm.
And it's a gift that he gives to us abundantly, and lavishly. And he gives us time to figure it out. He gives us time to ask questions. He gives us time to have doubts. He gives us time to be angry. He gives us time to try our own solutions. He gives us time to do, he just gives us time. He has
Mhm.
nothing but time for us. And for me, I just found that so encouraging, because I am guilty as anyone, perhaps the chief of all sinners, and that I feel this frenetic compulsion to arrive, like
Right.
to get to figure everything out, and to become who God's called me to be, and to just do it now, and just to get there. And every time I feel like I have some sort of like trip up or setback or whatever, it you know it derails my whole, almost my whole paradigm,
Yeah.
and I think that being able to step back and go, this is not the unforced rhythm of grace that Jesus talks about.
Yeah.
This, God has time for us to figure these things out, and he has time for us to become who he's called us to be. And he's not in a rush, and he's not, you know, counting the seconds for us to just get there.
Right.
And so as we kind of brought this collection of songs together, inadvertently we sort of began to see this thread woven through all of the lyrics and all of the themes, that just um, this story arc of just time, just God's faithfulness time after time, um, his goodness time after time, his forgiveness, his kindness time after time after time. And so it just became so obvious that this
Yeah.
is what the project needed to be centered around for
Hmm.
us. And so we are grateful for that.
It's beautiful. I love the whole concept of time. I often think about it in my own life that it's like the great equalizer as far as if I consider sometimes time like a currency. There's money
Yeah.
which we can have more or less of, but then there's time which we all have the same amount
Yeah.
of time. Nobody is more rich than the next person. It's just what we decide to do with
Absolutely.
that, and it's
Yeah.
so precious that it's almost like at the end of the day, if you have money, what you want to buy, because what you really want is more access to that time, or I don't know how to
Yeah.
define that, but so precious. And I love what you're also saying, that just can we all just slow down and unrush a little more, and not
Yeah.
press to that final arrival place, because you end up arriving and then you realize you haven't arrived. There's just another place to arrive to. There is no so
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
And I think that I started kind of feeling as though there were so many areas of my life where I was rushing to where God was calling me to be without becoming who he was calling me to be. And and
Hmm.
um that conflict of going, um there's, God does everything in seasons, and he uses process, he uses, um, patience, he uses the ebbs and flows. Like he's very interested in time, and I,
Yeah.
for some odd reason, all of us are intrinsically wired to think that we're the one exception to the rule and that we get
Yeah.
to exist outside of time with God
Yeah.
and we get to, jump the line. But God doesn't operate like that. Like he goes, no, like this is how I operate. And we play in the kingdom, we play by my rules.
Right.
and
Yeah.
and I think that being able to use that as a sort of a baseline to create as far as this project has gone has just been it's been really cool just to dive really deep into all of that.
Yeah. Beautiful. Do you mind if I just take a little flyby through some of the songs that people will come
Absolutely.
across? And maybe if I could just say, I'll mention a song and an artist, and you could just respond with just kind of briefly, maybe a first memory you have of your experience with that song or a meaningful like moment that captures that. We'll just do a little flyby. So the first one, and I'm not going to catch all of them, but almost all of them. Thunder in the Desert. One of the guys you wrote that with was Joel Houston. So many memories from the United days, I'm sure.
Yes.
So yeah. So tell me about that one.
I mean, Thunder in the Desert is one of those songs that came together really slowly and then really suddenly. So we I have the original voice memo from 3:30 in the morning,
Hmm.
you know, at Joel's writing space, and us going, "Wow, that chorus, that's beautiful," and then it finding a bunch of different iterations before it finally all at once became Thunder in the Desert over the course of about five minutes.
Hmm.
So, um, but yeah, it's often how it happens, um, and it's pretty amazing how Joel has a theory that every song is 5 minutes away from being done. It's just a question when those 5 minutes are coming. So,
Oh,
and
interesting.
and that one that one played by that role for sure.
Yeah. So another one, Jesus is Lord with Christine DeMarco and Mitch Wong. I just had a chat with Mitch on our show
Oh,
last week.
amazing.
So yeah. So that was really nice.
Amazing. Yeah, I that song we did Jesus is Lord at a writing camp in Reading, and Mitch actually came in via Zoom, and so we were the rest of us were in the room together, and then Mitch zoomed in, and of course in typical Mitch fashion showed up with this incredible idea of over this and over this and over this, Jesus is Lord,
Yeah.
and we were all just instantly captivated. And then I remember we started having these conversations based around a an old C.S. Lewis kind of quote about how Jesus is Lord, whether you like it or not, and you're going to bow to Him one day, either by your own choice or He'll make the choice for you.
Yeah.
And so that's where the song ended up kind of going, and it just became this song of just God's just complete and total like sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I love that song. I just feel like it's bright and declarative, and it just addresses so many things right on the nose. Like it doesn't pull any punches. And
Yeah.
Mitch and I joke that song's all business, and so
Beautiful.
that's a fun one.
All right. Well, I need a few tips because I'm interviewing Amanda Cook on Tuesday. So that was the next
Okay,
song I was going to bring up, The King, who you wrote with her and Ricky and Rand Jansen. So, but I know Amanda. I've
yeah.
I've spoken with her a number of times. Tell me about your connection there.
Amanda and I've been friends for a while, and
Yeah.
we were writing at Ricky's house, and I didn't know that they are like lifelong friends, Ricky and Ran
Yeah.
and Amanda, and so I kind of felt a little bit like the new kid on the block because they had so much history, and we kind of we ran after several ideas over the course of the day, and I remember texting my wife and being like, "Yeah, I think we're about to wrap up soon," and kind of feeling a little defeated because it felt like we had like gotten a lot of starts of songs, but we hadn't really made a ton of progress. And then right as I was leaving, Rand goes, "Oh, I have this idea for a chorus," and he threw out the what eventually became the chorus to "The King," and we all just kind of sat there and looked at each other. And I picked up my phone and I texted her and I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be another few hours, another few hours."
Hilarious.
And
Oh, no way.
and so that song came together, over the course of several more writes. But yeah, I mean that song. I mean, we don't have to get too much in the weeds,
Yes.
but there's a lot of different there concepts that called atonement theories.
Yeah.
The penal substitution theory. There's all these different ways that what did that transaction at the cross? What did that look like? What did
Yes.
it mean? What were the factors involved and all these things? And there's an atonement theory that I started learning about called Christus Victor, which is this idea
Yes.
that um, that the cross wasn't a nail biter. It wasn't like a Jesus had a buzzer beater at the 11th hour and like just got by. It was like an annihilation. It was like 10,000 to 1. It was like
Mm.
a bloodbath. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was an absolute pummeling of sin. And so I remember talking to the guys and going, I'm really tired of us singing songs like we just got by,
Right.
like we eked one out.
Yeah.
Like what if we had a song that just from line one we just went like victory, like
Right.
just victory from the very beginning. And so that was where that song kind of came from and the place that we wrote it from. And so it just all felt like it just came together in such a it's just such a linear and cohesive way, just telling just this story and kind of like hoping that it you sing those words and like as a Christian, like kind of put your shoulders back a little bit,
Yeah.
like and sing it. And I think that I'm hopeful that that's how people receive it and hear it,
Right.
and I love that song. So
Beautiful. I have a thought, and I know we're not going to get too much into weeds, but I totally
right.
appreciate the Christus Victor. I've looked into that and I've really considered a lot of the atonement theory. So, man, we could just go off on this if you want. But
Yeah.
I know that another song you have about the blood is Plead the Blood, which goes back to nothing but the blood.
Mm.
So I just wanted to throw out a little thought. I'm just taking a risk here and seeing what you think about. I've been thinking about how much we associate blood with death. Like
Mm.
in media, generally when you see blood, you think death, and gore or horror, and from the outside looking in, even on Christianity and our focus on blood, sometimes it can feel like, well, it's kind of gross, all this blood
Right.
focus. But I also have been thinking blood also represents life, especially like when you
It
can't see
does.
it, but through my skin here, blood is flowing. It is the life. Like Jesus is alive, and that's also his blood, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wanted to see your response because you have been diving into these songs and writing about this. But yes, Jesus died. Yes, that was important. But he is alive, and the blood is there as well. It's living.
Yeah.
It's flowing. It's breathing through us in as we are filled with the Spirit of Christ. So it's probably not a new
Absolutely. And
concept, but
I mean, but I think that it's an important one and a commonly overlooked one.
right.
I think that um, the whole idea behind that song for us was far less. It's not a plead as in please God do this. It's like when someone when someone pleads the fifth in a
Yes.
legal context,
Yeah.
they're saying there's an infrastructure that exists that supersedes the situation that I'm in.
Right.
And there's a mechanism within it that I can use to protect myself. That
Yes.
by invoking that amendment, that
Yeah.
means I am now protected.
Yeah.
So that's what pleading the blood is. Pleading the
Yeah.
blood is going, there's something more powerful than me at work in this situation. So
Right.
I'm going to invoke that right
Mm-hmm.
of pleading the blood on my life. So Brandon and I talk about it all the time. The moment my kid starts to get the sniffles, I invoke my right as a Christian to go, I go, Jesus didn't die on the cross for half healing. That's not what that's not what he did it for. So I'm going to invoke the rights that I have as a Christian and go, oh, I plead the blood. Like
Yeah.
anytime I feel like I'm having anxiety, anytime that I feel like there's anything, and I'm not trying to be like uber spiritual or spooky about anything, but there are real deal principalities that we are at war with as Christians. And so I go, far be it for me to show up to a spiritual gunfight with a knife, like, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
I'm going, I have this thing called the blood, and I'm going to invoke it at every single opportunity that I have.
Hmm.
And so we plead it for exactly the same reason that you said, is that sure, the world can see it as death, but as Christians, you get to see it as life. And
Yeah.
so I think that is, I love that perspective. I think that's amazing.
Beautiful. Couple more songs. I see that My History with Brian Johnson and Phil Wickham. So obviously you
Yeah.
picked up off of Hymn of Heaven and you're like, if we could do it once, maybe we could do it again, you know?
You never know. Yeah. I mean, I guess it was like, Phil does this amazing thing whenever we write, where he goes to this beautiful little church in Southern
Yes.
California, he's been friends with the pastor, right, for years and years and years, and he whenever we write down there, they clear out. He like moves all the seats in the sanctuary, and we set up in the sanctuary, like right in the middle of the room, so that you can like feel what it's like to sing it in the room, and
Hmm.
it just creates this sense of, it's just, you just feel like you're connected to the church. It's really powerful, and so I went down to write with Phil and Brian, and we just were having this conversation about that, um, about the scripture, I've never seen the righteous forsaken, and from the top of that song, that's right where the song leads in, and and just this idea of God has a history, he has a measurable track record of faithfulness
Yeah.
and of keeping his promises, and so writing that song was just such a joy, just a bright, um, just a bright, joyful song about
Hmm.
God's faithfulness. Like, I just think things like that. I hope, man, I hope things like that never get old for me. I hope
Yeah.
that I just love singing songs like that from the rest of my life.
Beautiful. I can't wait to bring that one out. Okay, one more, and then we'll bring it to a wrap. So, and this is a familiar one, Too Good to Not Believe, another song. I don't know if
Yes,
people realize you were somehow in the story of that. So, and that's going to be refreshed in a Chris
yes.
Davenport way. So, tell me about your connection into that song. What a powerful
So I
song.
get, so I guess "Too Good" is from, that would have been the first time that Brandon and Cody and I ever wrote together, and I think I had reached out to Cody via Instagram and about a song that he had put out, and I had just told him that it had had such a profound impact on me, and we kind of
Hmm.
started talking a little bit, and then eventually Brandon was coming to Nashville to write with him, and Cody messaged me on Instagram and was like, "Would you want to come write with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I
Boy,
would."
you get a lot of
And
those
uh,
calls. That's really
and
cool.
uh, and and so I so I, and we had never met, we'd never hung out, any of
Really?
us. And so went, I flew in and then like drove over to Cody's house the next morning because I got in really late, and we just kind of sat down and we're having a coffee and just sort of getting to know each other. And we just kind of started telling stories, and about just wild things that we had seen. And,
Mm.
um, and you could kind of feel like like the energy in the room starting to build, and, um, and, and just kind of, we got to this place where we were like, man, like, what if we just like wrote a song about everything that we've seen? And what if we just didn't dress it up in poetry? What if we just said it, you know, and, and so, uh, that's where the bridge of that song came from was, those are all specific things that one of us had seen or experienced. And all of those are attached to a specific story at a specific service with a specific person,
Mm.
um, and, and so I think that's why I think that song for me felt like it connected to people so quickly. And I think the reason why is because it was just so real and so authentic, and I remember
Hmm.
just being, and it hasn't happened very often. I just remember being on my face in Cody's little writing room, just going like, what is happening? Like, what are we
Mm.
writing right now? Like,
Hmm.
and, and, and I think,
Because it's not a tame song. I mean, some of the
no,
lyrics in there is like, I haven't seen that, but man, I hope that's happened. Or, it's just like,
absolutely.
wow, wow.
Yeah. And so I just think that, um, I, I just was like, man, like, I just want to write songs that stir faith up in people,
Yeah.
and, um, and, and just remind people that, just remind people how good God is. But then I also think like we all had this conviction that we were just like, man, like, I could try to walk away from this, but I've just seen too much. Like, I've just seen God do too much. Like, it's just like, I just can't deny it. It would make no sense for me to try and deny it.
Yeah.
It's not like it would be illogical.
Yeah.
And, um, and so I think, yeah, that's where that song came from. And
Hmm.
that, that one, that will be a special moment. And I think that song created a bond between, I would say, the
Yeah.
three of us.
Yeah.
And we've written so much together since then. Um, and it's just always just been such a joy to write with those guys and
Yeah.
partner with them.
Yeah. Beautiful. Wow. What a ride. Thank you for taking us through this journey. And I can't wait for this album to come out. You're
Thank you.
such a tremendous gift to the church, and I appreciate your heart that you're at the same time willing to stay somewhat behind the scenes, that songwriter that gets invited in and not, as often on the big stage, but then you're also willing to put yourself out there, right? And
Yeah.
and do these versions as you would have sung them, and so beautiful. So thank you for
Thank you.
being a servant like that, and it's a real joy to come alongside of you. All of those songs we are working on, we're gonna have all the charts. I'm sure many of them will take to piano, vocal, violins, strings, cellos, trumpets, the whole thing. There will be big choirs and orchestras, and then little worship teams with acoustic guitars playing
Love
those
it.
songs. So thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for everything that you guys do to just equip the local church.
Yeah.
Man, like, I'm just so grateful for you guys. I know so many churches that use your resources,
Hmm.
and so I'm just, you guys are just doing incredible work, and we
Hmm.
wouldn't be here without you. So thank you.
Right on. Right on. Thank you so much. Okay, this is Ryan Dahl and Chris Davenport, and I hope you've enjoyed this inside look And please check the link in the notes below this video so that you can go and check out all the songs from this new album called Time. So looking forward to hearing all of that. Thanks, Chris. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye then.